Good morning, everybody. Adam here. I want to talk to you about being a good worker. I went to a store yesterday and a couple of things happened, and then this morning another situation happened. And so I have my own business and I have equipment, so thankfully I don't need a lot of help. But the help I do need, I want it to be effectual. And so I don't know if it's how widespread. It seems to be very widespread. So I thought this morning, I was talking to a friend of mine and telling him a few things. And so I decided I'm just going to go live and talk about this and share some thoughts with you all. And maybe this will help somebody. So I don't know how my dad did it, but somehow he installed in me that if I'm working for somebody, if I'm idle on the job, I'm stealing. If I'm paid to work so much an hour to perform from this time to this time, and then I get a break where I'm not paid, or I'm paid but it's a scheduled break, I don't need to be working like I'm on break during the times that I'm not on break. And yesterday I went to buy a new battery for the dump trailer, and we were trying to figure out if the platinum battery that had all of the verbiage that was correct for what I needed was actually a deep cycle battery. It had a 2-year warranty. At length, I decided to get that battery because it had all the correct verbiage. It didn't say deep cycle, but it had all the characteristics of such. So anyway, with the 2-year warranty, I'll be going through 2 winters. I said I'll go ahead and do that one. And anyway, we were standing in the aisle discussing this, looking it up, Googling it on our phones, trying to figure this out. And a young man come around the corner with one of those vacuum sweeper mops. And he comes around the end of the shelving and sees we're in the middle of the aisle and just stops. Just shuts it down right there, turns it off, and just is standing there watching us. And after a little bit, I looked at him and I said, "How long are you going to stand there and watch us before going down another aisle?" And it's like he didn't even think about it. When I said that to him, he like snapped to attention, fired it back up, and right on back to work he goes. So then I go to check out, and they only wanted to give me $12 for my old battery on the core. So I said, just go ahead and charge me for the core. And so he added it on there. I paid the bill. And then he says to me, he says, "You know where to put the core, right?" I said, "Yeah, in the back of my truck." I said, "You charged me for the core, didn't you?" And he affirmed with a nod. I said, "Okay, thanks." I walked out. And it's like, if you're working for somebody, an individual, a company, whatever it is, think about what you're doing. Get your mind out of the gutter and think about what you're doing. I cut trees for a living. I have to pay attention to everything I do, every cut I make. I'm aware of how much sawdust I'm creating and where I'm putting the sawdust. If I'm blowing it up into the air on a deck or all kinds of everything. I pay attention to all of it. And it's like I see the way people work and conduct themselves, and it's like they're not even engaged. So you need to engage yourself in what you're doing. The Bible says, do it as unto the Lord. And for some of you, if you're claiming to be a Christian, and if that's the way you work, I'd hate to know what kind of Christian you are. So I'm looking to buy a box trailer or a cargo trailer or an enclosed trailer to store my lift in. And I messaged a company last night and I said, does this have an 84-inch back door? Well, I got a message this morning. No, this one only has a 7-foot back door, or a 72-inch back door. And I said, okay, how much would it cost for one with a 84-inch back door? And they respond with, you'll have to get a NAM model or a NOM model. That's all they said. So I respond, I don't know NAM from NOM any more than I can speak Chinese. How much is an 84-inch back door model? You know, it came across like I'm the salesman all of a sudden. And you know, they're trying to sell the trailer. I'm trying to buy the trailer, but they're just telling me, oh, you got to go with this model or that. Okay, how much is it? That's what I asked. And so there's no engagement, no forward engagement. It's like, oh, I answered his question. If the boss gets on, you know, and looks at the messenger exchange, it's like, why didn't you give him the price? The man's asking you for a price. So, how we conduct ourselves while working for somebody else is a big thing. And as a business owner, as somebody that needs help, it's very frustrating when the worker is not engaged, when the worker is careless. And especially in my line of work, I have to, as I said, I have to watch everything. I have to watch the worker. I have to watch everything I do, because it's dangerous. If I cut a limb and go to throw it down, I have to know where the worker's at. I have to know where he's at, what he's doing. If he's looking at the phone and got earbuds in and not paying attention, and if I don't pay attention and throw one overboard, so it seems to be, you know, everybody that I would say about everybody knows the complaints about the modern workforce, this young generation. We've all heard stories. So if you're hearing this and you don't care about what you're doing enough to engage and pay attention, do something else. Or get your mind right to where at the very least you're doing whatever you do as unto the Lord. You don't have an attitude of, well, I just get paid $20 an hour or whatever it is you get paid. He only pays me X. They only pay me X. That's not the right attitude. I know of a fella, and this is my attitude, and he's older, he's in his 60s. He told me he offered to go to work for a company for free one time, doing some computer programming or whatever. They weren't hiring at the time, or maybe they weren't sure or whatever. He offered to go to work for free. I had to change a transmission in a Dodge pickup truck years ago. And I was talking to the neighbor, and he said, I got a buddy that he knows how to do this. He worked for XYZ, and he's at home right now. He's sitting on the couch doing nothing. I said, great, call him up, ask him how much he would want to come over and help put this transmission in this truck. So Matt gets back to me. He said he wouldn't touch it for no less than $600. I said, you tell your buddy to stay right on that couch and don't get up. So I got a hold of one of the busiest persons I knew. Called him up. I said, hey, can you help me put a transmission in? Yep, I'll be right over. I gave him $300 just for showing up. Came over. We had the thing done probably in a couple hours. Didn't take any time at all. But the lazy guy, the man with the attitude, he didn't want to get off the couch for no less than $600. I said, you just stay right there on that couch. I don't want you helping it one bit with this transmission. He'd have probably milked it out for 2 days. So it's the attitude. And, you know, some people are unemployed, some people are they just, I don't get it. I drive around, I see opportunity everywhere. It's all over the place. But it's the attitude that is not getting the job done. It's the attitude that's not getting the job. I'll tell you a funny one. I cut it was a widowmaker off a tree for a fella yesterday, and I went back to collect and stopped in there, and they were in the back of the house there on the lakeside, sitting around, and him and his wife and nephew and a friend was over there, and he said to me, he said, because he knows I'm really busy right now, and he says, when you get hungry, he says, come back and we'll talk about getting these trees trimmed up here. And right away his wife said something about making dinner. And my helper, he says, hey, I'd never turn down a good meal. Of course, I wouldn't either, right? And then he laughed, and he says to his wife, he said, honey, I'm talking about when he gets hungry for work. Oh, I said, let's not back out of this conversation now. So anyway, when you're hungry for work, you'll go looking for it. You might even do it cheaper. But when you're lazy and you don't care and you're on unemployment, you'll sit on the couch and not move unless somebody gives you $600. What that kind of being on that type of a schedule is going to do nothing but mess you up more than you're already messed up. So, anyway, I'm going to quit rambling. That was enough. Jesus is the only way. There's no other name given among men whereby we must be saved. Those of you that out there that are praying through men, like the Church of God Restoration in Greenville, Ohio, and those following Stephen P. Hargrave in Muncie, Indiana, of Brothers Barbershop on Wheeling Avenue, you've not found Christ. You've not read where it is written, and you do err not knowing the scriptures. So, if you don't know the Lord, seek the Lord. Seek Him and Him alone. Don't pick up the phone and call somebody and say, hey, Bob, what do you think about? You don't need to know what Bob thinks. You don't need to know what you think. the Lord will be faithful if you seek him, and he will reveal to you what you need to know when you need to know it. And if you act on that, he'll reveal more, and perchance you may end up coming to the knowledge of the truth, and the truth will make you free. As he spake to the Jews that believed on him. In John chapter 8, verse 31, then spake Jesus to those Jews that believed on him, if you continue in my word, then are you my disciples indeed, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. But in verse 44, he told the same Jews their father was the devil. So it's repentance, it's continuing in the doctrine, what you know, and living it. That's what he meant when he said, eat my flesh and drink my blood. He said, even he shall live by me. So if you're going to live by Christ, you're going to do the things that he says. You're going to act according to his will and not your own. And you'll be a lot better worker for it. All right, Lord bless y'all. Paying out.